This is our little quarantine from home Zoom show called Bring It In. Good morning from True Hoop to Jarod, Hector, David, Thorpe. How are you guys?
We're good.
Doing well. 19 days left, folks. Let's come on. Come on. Listen, it's serious business out here. 19 days.
It is. What's the deal with early voting in New York? Is it happening?
It is happening. I already did my votes, already sent them in 2 weeks ago. Wasn't playing games, messing around with no postal service. But yeah, and I know today is the last day to register in New York, I believe. I think it's the same in New Jersey as well. I think it's today.
Yeah.
Look, if you got family, friends, like just reach whoever, your Facebook community, reach out, let them know. Like you need to exercise this franchise always, but now more than ever.
David, did you already vote?
Last night, my wife and she made an amazing dinner, and we went through the entire ballot because we have our ballots, and we've never had an easier time picking all the candidates because we're just choosing one party this time for the very first time ever. We blame ourselves for some of our previous votes after seeing how people have acted in the Senate and Congress, but then we had to go through all the amendments, wherever. So we're going to drive them in sometime this week. We're going to go in person and drop them off. Yeah.
We sent ours in. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was alive when the Abbotts voted.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Yeah. My daughter voted. My son just got his. He's mailing his in. Like we're not playing around either.
The other thing, folks, is before we get into our fun stuff, guys, pay attention to the public questions on your ballot. Like those matter so much. Watch out for the gerrymandering things. And if you're not sure what stuff mean, go online and look it up. Like they're trying to pull wool over your eyes. Pay attention.
I agree.
If you're not sure how to vote, just call Jarod, and he's happy to tell you.
So when we do our GOAT talk, Henry, I told Jarod each time I want to predict who I think is going to be in that slot. You can also, of course.
Okay, so we're now going to kick off the part of the show that's about what the show's about, which is Monday. I went first with my greatest of all time list, and today is about Jarod. Hector. Friday will be David. If anybody else wants to share theirs, we welcome that.
Please, yeah.
There's the chat there. If you want to join us on video, should we review Henry's? Well, only since you made a nice graphic. There we go. This is the five that I picked.
You're not losing a lot of basketball games if that is your starting five. Okay, you ain't losing much.
Thorpe talked a little trash about my five, the being lose to his five.
We'd smoke your team, but that's a whole.
Okay.
It'll be good for a quarter and a half for sure. You went with two big guys. It's so unlike you, Henry.
Do you want to talk trash like that, Jarod?
Well, before I even get into all that, I want to do before I get into my five, I want to do a little honorable mention, or should I say, knocking on the door. Go ahead, Judy. Show my knocking on the door.
Oh,
I thought he made it. I thought he made your team.
No.
Okay.
That is Kevin Durant. Look, and the reason why I put him there is because, of course, Henry had Steph Curry as number 3, so I had to be like, So I feel like if you're a Durant guy, then you're an anti-Steph guy, right? That's kind of how this whole basketball
that's
works.
The rule. Okay, I got it.
But I will say this: he's not in my top 5. I do believe he is in my 12 to 15 already right now. And if you look at numbers like career PER, box score plus minus, offensive box score plus minus, win shares per 48, he is already among the best of all time, like top 3, top 4 category. A couple things need to go right for him in this Brooklyn thing. Another championship, potentially another MVP. Then that firmly moves him well into the top 10. Now we can start talking about, all right, does he fit into that top 5?
That happen?
I don't know, but whatever. But
that's not happening.
Just putting that out there.
I'm just saying that's not happening. Everything you said is exactly right. The if part at the end,
right? That's why I said
that's hard doing shit.
Yeah, that's why I said if. Okay.
He's amazing though.
Number 5.
Oh, I would have guessed Durant.
Okay, so who'd you guess?
I gotta think now. So I either have 4 or 5. I'm gonna say at 5 you've got Magic.
I'm gonna say Wilt, Henry. And number 5 is Wilt Chamberlain. Good job, Henry.
Jesus, you guys are out of your minds.
but Coach Thorpe, here's what I'm saying about Wilt. It is the athleticism which you agreed with, and we talked about pre-show. if he plays in today's era as the same level athlete with access to everything else, he's still a fucking incredible. Ooh, I dropped an F-bomb. He's still an incredible basketball player.
Agreed.
We know what all the stats say, right? The Finals MVPs, leading the league in assists, 10-time All-NBA, 7-time scoring champ, all that. I will say this: coaching was so bad back then, as Henry pointed out. I wonder if Red Auerbach had the chance to coach Wilt instead of Bill Russell, what would that have looked like? I don't know.
This is what we talked about.
It strikes me that I know how to sell David on this concept. Not that look, David gets to have his 5. That's fine.
Right.
But what I would say to David is, if he just had someone like you, David, helping him out.
Yeah, if he had Coach Thorpe. I mean, shit.
Imagine what he could do.
This is what Red said to me. I won't go into any more details now. I'm taking that with me, but this is what we talked about. And when I talked to Butch about it, because Butch coached him a little bit later and won a championship with him. I think Wilt was, like a lot of guys, needed the right voice and rarely got it, like his whole life, and rarely got it. I don't disagree with any of that, but but he's allowed to. You're allowed to have your opinion. You're not an idiot for putting Wilt Chamberlain at number 5. Neither of you are idiots, of course.
And that is the point, Coach, that you make right there that I want to touch on. For so many people in this league, their ultimate ceiling, their peak of their powers, have to be imagined in the right scenario, right? With the right coach, right organization, all that. There's a handful of guys who, it doesn't matter who's there, they're going to be great regardless. LeBron, as we've seen, obviously, Michael Jordan, people like that. But everybody else, it has to be the right scenario. Like, could you imagine if Tim Duncan got drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers?
That's what I've been saying. I agree with you totally. I've been saying all along that the Spurs helped Duncan as much as Duncan helped the Spurs. But I want to throw this out to both of you, though. It's fair to say that any baseball player that played before we actually allowed not just black men from America, but black men from Latin American countries who grew up playing the game, those stats are so distorted. Maybe those guys really were as good as they look like. How would we really know? Wilt was playing a bunch of Henry Abbotts and David Thorpe. Like a few tall guys. Bill Russell, amazing, obviously, and tall. But not many guys, and they couldn't stop smoking cigarettes at halftime. Like, maybe he would have been great. I won't argue with you. Probably would have been great. But that doubt is what causes me the problem with those guys.
That's always your. But again, when I look at just the accomplishments, I'm like, how the hell you leave this guy out? I mean, it's
I had no problem leaving him off at all.
I know. All right, my number 4 is coming up. Take your guess, Coach. Who's number 4?
So if you don't have Magic at number 4, we are fighting when I come to move to New York.
Henry, what do you got?
The next 2 are Magic and Kareem. I'm not sure which order, but that seems like a lock to me.
Judy, show number 4. Yes, the legend, Earvin Magic.
So we can still be friends. I'm glad.
Thank you, Coach. So this was my favorite player growing up. My first memory of basketball was the '84 NBA Finals.
Jeez,
well,
I was in college.
I was 6, 8. I was 8, something like that.
I was retired.
Which game though, Jarod? Was it the Junior Skyhook? That was 87.
It might have been a Junior Skyhook game. But what I loved about him, Coach, was the way he played the game. The constant, like, I know this sounds cheesy, but the joy he played with and the fun he seemed to have on the court. And I did not like the Celtics at all.
Yeah.
Like, and at that age, I don't think I had the vocabulary to know what it was then. Looking back now, it was probably some racial stuff in there. You know, I was like, who are all these white dudes? What's going, like, you know, like, I didn't know how to articulate that, or even that was a thought, but I'm sure that was somewhere in my subconscious. But, you know, 5-time champ, 3-time finals MVP, jump center as a rookie when Kareem got hurt in game 5, led them to that championship. 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, led the league in assists 4 times, 2-time steals leader. His win shares per 48, box score plus minus, and offensive box score plus minus numbers are among the best all time. If I want someone to get my team into their sets and lead the fast break, and because he can execute in both the half court and the open court, I just thought that Magic was excellent. And at 6'9", what a great rebounding guard too. Many years averaged 9, 10 boards a game. Just phenomenal. So that's my number 4, the Magic Man.
Did I ever tell you guys the story that Bobby Hurley told me about Magic at the Dream Team, where how they put plays in? Chuck Daly would just give Magic. This is what Bobby said. Chuck would give Magic the play, and then Bobby would be at half court, just like standing, because he was guarding Magic, but they were scrimmaging some. And Magic would step on the court. He would turn around because Magic plays sideways, right?
Yeah.
And he would Scotty do this, Chuck do this. He would walk him through the play live because he knew what everyone was supposed to do. He was just a genius that way. And you couldn't do anything. Bobby was half his size, He's just a man. It was so funny.
Well, I think your point about joy, Michael Jordan had a certain presence, a certain style.
Yes.
Which obviously was very effective, right?
Clearly.
But it's not the only effective style. And
Right.
I felt like that, Jordan shoved Magic aside, right? Like that's kind of what happened and we lost a lot there because I think that Magic's mode is actually more conducive to roping in Kareem, right? And getting different personalities to contribute and emerge. And I felt like he was ultimately very welcoming basketball personality, right? I mean, I remember I was a Blazers fan. He was just smiling and bouncing through the lane and paying passes to everyone who broke my dreams, right? Like it was, there's nothing you could do with that guy. He was a freaking, I'm sure David will talk about him for a whole hour on Friday, but
I've got to save some of my stories for Friday. Right? I wrote about, I don't remember what the article was, Henry, that you helped edit. But I wrote about that easy bake oven that me and Ron cooked. Now he's Dr. Ron Otten for the CDC. But we watched his first ever game, Jarod. We watched Kareem's 18 or 20 foot skyhook to win the game against the San Diego Clippers. Game 1. This was the 79-80 season, right? And when Kareem made it, I was so happy because I was a big Laker fan. And I never watched a pro game before the whole game. I watched the famous Celtics Suns 6 overtime game. I watched that on my parents' black and white TV in their bedroom because they didn't want to watch it. But I watched the whole game. I watched this whole fucking thing till 1:30 in the morning. Tape delayed. The game was long over when we saw it on the East Coast. And then Kareem makes it. Magic jumps in his arms. And after the game, Kareem's quote was, Magic's quote was, Kareem said, "Hey, big fella, all right, hey, Buck, we've got 81 more of these." And Magic said, "Big fella, you make 81 more game winners and 80 more celebrations like this." And Kareem laughed about it.
Yeah.
Kareem never laughed.
Yeah.
Never.
And Henry, right. I think your point about the joy, and again, I don't want to sound cheesy, but we talk about point guards, right? And now it's positionless, so it doesn't matter. But there's something about that back then when we had clear positions, a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the 1 is your leader, right? He is the one that's got the ball in his hands. When you are effervescent and smiling, and you are getting everyone to that means something, right? Guys like Kareem and Worthy, you can get them all buy in, right? That's a lot of that is what LeBron has, right? He is very much in that let's get these guys together, right? Jordan was the I'm going to bend you to my will. That was his style because that's the only way he knew. Works for some, doesn't quite work for everybody. But that Magic style, I mean, and I think that on this team of 5 that I have with these malcontents, I need someone who can get everybody to smile and be happy. So that's why Magic's the Magic point guard, as you can see, right?
Have you ever heard Worthy talk about Magic's influence on him? So Worthy, Big Game James, right? Worthy said, Big Game James. Now, keep in mind, James Worthy won the national title, right? He was with the best player when Jordan made the game winner. Worthy was the national player of the year, okay? And then he was an amazing player for the Lakers, but he didn't used to be. And James tells I don't know him. James Worthy tells the story that they're in a big game, some playoff game, whatever. And, Magic's Riley's talking to the team and Magic's talking to the team. And as they leave, Magic's like, "Hey, James, I'm coming to you. Good to work." And James literally thought, "He's coming to me?" Like, what? he didn't understand. And then he kind of "Hey, Magic's coming to me." And he made him into Big Game James. I'm going to tell a different story on Friday about Byron Scott that I witnessed personally. But James Worthy credits Magic for believing in him, which, as Henry and I have been talking about for a decade or more now, when LeBron made that pass to Danielle Marshall, and by the way, Danielle made 3 of those in the previous game. Like there was a
The right play.
from that same spot.
The right play.
Right, from the right. That means something to all the other guys. Like Danny Green, it meant something that LeBron against four dudes. Like, I'm not shooting this. I'm throwing the Danny Green. Like that carries weight, right? Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I say it all the time. As Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas said numerous times, the secret of basketball is it's not actually about basketball, right? Like there is something about that congenial spirit you feel. Man, Henry believes in me. That makes me now want to work harder and do it because this leader believes in me, and that matters to more guys than you think.
Well, we can make fun of me for not saying The Last Dance yet, but I gather that some of Jordan's teammates aren't happy with him anymore.
You are
probably true about that. Shout out to Scott Burrell. So before I get into my top three, this order can change based on the day, how I'm feeling, and whatever's going on. But I've said this numerous times. These next three men are, in my opinion, the only three men who have claim to the greatest player of all time. And you can make a case for any one of these three. Calm down, Coach Thorpe. Not your turn yet. And the first person I want to make the case for is Ferdinand Louis Alcindor Jr. You all might know him as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And so Kareem, obviously, he started his career late 60s, early 70s. He played 20 seasons in the NBA, 18 of those 20 in the playoffs, 6 with Milwaukee, 14 with the Lakers. 19-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA, 11-time All-Defense, 6-time champ, 2-time Finals MVP, the only 6-time league MVP in history. Only one. 2-time scoring champ, 4-time block champ. By the way, they didn't count blocks the first 4 years of his career.
Whoa.
Could have probably won 3 more of those.
Does anyone have any idea how many he might have blocked those first 4 years when he was super athletic?
If you're looking at the numbers, I mean, because he was averaging 3.6 when they first started counting him. So I'm like, well, he had to be averaging at least 4 back then. But whatever. They weren't counting it. Led the league in rebounding, rookie of the year. 19 of his 20 seasons, he was in the top 20 in field goal percentage, finishing no worse than 7th in his first 17 seasons. He had 17 of his 20 seasons, top 20 in PER, finishing 1st or 2nd in his first 12 seasons. Defensive win shares, 12 seasons in the top 20, led the league twice, finished no worse than 8th in his first 12 seasons. Career number 3 all-time in defensive win shares. Offensive win shares, 17 of 20 in the top 20, led the league 7 times, finished no worse than 6th in his first 12 seasons, and he's career number 1 in offensive win shares. The inventor of the skyhook, his first 7 seasons, 30 points a game, 15.5 rebounds, 4 assists per game, and if I'm going to guess on the blocks, 3.7 blocks per game. But if you average out just the ones they counted, 3.6. And then, of course, the narrative stuff. So, and Coach, you remember this. This is late in his career.
I remember all of this.
This is late in his career. So he's 37 years old. And it's the one final moment as a great player on a big stage. 85 NBA Finals against their bitter rivals, the Celtics. The Memorial Day Massacre. Lakers get dump trucked.
Blown out game 1.
Kareem looked like garbage. 12 points, 3 rebounds. Cap is old and slow. All these guys are laughing at him on the bench. McHale, Parrish are like, we got the best of him. Kareem stinks, blah, 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 whatever. What followed was one of the great performances and next great runs you've ever seen. Game 3 in that win, 30 points, 17 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 blocks in a win. Went on to average 28, 10, 6, and 1 en route to Finals MVP at 38 years old.
Do you know what he did before game 2, right before the game? You probably do, because you probably have seen it.
Talk to his dad.
Go ahead.
His dad got to break a team rule. Pat Riley does not allow anybody but teammates or team members on the bus. Pat said, look, we need Cap. Cap said, I need my dad on this bus. A 37, 38-year-old man said, I need to talk to my dad. And that's where Coach and Henry, and we always talk about the human side of this. Riley says, okay, this one time I will allow your brother to ride with us on the bus to the arena. Comes out, has that monster game. And again, he's the NBA's all-time leading scorer. He is, we think about James Harden's step back, Curry's pull-up 3, Durant's pull up in the mid-range, LeBron's drive to the rim, spin move, get to the rim. There's all these different iconic moves we think of. When you needed a bucket, that sky hook from Kareem was almost automatic every single time. And I fear that as the further we get away, we're going to forget how great this man was. And then I've even talked about his college career and, of course, his high school career at Power Memorial. I mean, this man walking around has won and owned every single basketball award ever made. So you can see how you can make the case. And he's a great player of all time, right? Like, he's done everything you can imagine on a basketball court. So shout outs to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Oh, and let's not forget, of course, all the stuff he's done off the court in terms of civil rights, the books he's written. He's a Hollywood movie writer now on TV. I mean, this guy is brilliant.
Brilliant guy.
And the funny thing about all these awards and stuff, if you know anything about him, he doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff. Like, you talk to him about, like, you did this. He's like,
he liked his jazz albums that he lost in a fire.
Yes. These are things that he cares about. And for those of you young guys who don't know a lot about him, I encourage you to watch the excellent HBO documentary, Kareem, A Minority of One. And it will give you an appreciation of this guy.
Not like, it's like they burned his house down, right? Like, I mean,
it did.
Like, he was.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize
Yeah.
burned it down.
It got burned down. Yeah. No, someone. It was arson. Someone burned it
down.
down.
How did I not know that? Jesus Christ.
I just feel like these accomplishments are harder in that environment, right? Like, it just are, right? Like, he was a resolute man who was very aware of racism, and they wanted to punish him for it, and he heard about it all the time, right? And like, he's a little salty. He's a little bit difficult to deal with, and I fucking understand why.
It makes him normal,
right? Like,
right?
Yes.
It means a lot to me that he had to cope with. I mean, racism has been so pervasive in NBA history, but like, I was alive to see this happen with Kareem some, right? And like, the notion of going to work every day and being that kind of ass kicker when you're going home to what you're going, like, I feel like that's
that in and of itself.
France, chapeau.
So I want to give a couple of different tips to Jarod when you're going through your list going forward, my friend, and you want to mention Kareem as one of the best three of all time, which is completely within your right. You're not stupid for doing it, but you are a little bit suspect for not mentioning his amazing cameo in Airplane. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Not only was it great that he was in it, he could have recited the alphabet. It would have been cute and funny. I watched that in the theaters, just so you know. I know you weren't alive yet, but I was in the theaters watching it. But what he said, his little monologue, was fantastic. Right?
Bill Walton got a little shout out there.
Huh?
So here's the thing. I knew either you or Randy would have mentioned Airplane for sure. And of course, the little kid that comes into the cockpit and says to him, "My dad says you, hey kid, get the hell out of here."
Yeah. His speech is unbelievable. He delivered it great. Another thing, this is not so much about Kareem as your point about the dad. I give Pat Riley credit for not being, don't be such a taskmaster that you hurt yourself by not bending the rules. But I've always thought, and if I ever had a chance to talk to Kareem, I would ask him. I had that dinner once with Bill Walton. I didn't have any fun things to ask because I didn't watch his career like Henry did. I knew everything about Kareem. He was the first book I ever read about an athlete was Giant Steps. I've read it like 8 times. My whole family's read it. I think it's part of the Thorpe tradition. You got to read Giant Steps. Mm-hmm. But Magic, Pat Riley would not have let Mr. Alcindor ride on the bus if his second best player, who really was his best player at that point, second most famous, had a problem with it. Mm-hmm. Magic didn't care. Like, this is
right.
Cap. They didn't call him Kareem. They called him Cap, which I loved that. Yep. Magic was more famous at that point, way more
Always
famous.
Called him Cap. Always deferential.
Always called him Cap. Yep. And I think Riley always called him Earvin, and Kareem, I think, called him Buck. Most of the guys called him Buck.
Yep.
But I think Pat Riley called him by his first name, which is my rule. Maybe I got it from Pat Riley. I call you what your mom calls you. That's kind of always my thing. But I love that Magic allowed that to take place. And yeah, what Kareem did in that series was, and by the way, he also made, I believe it was down 1, 2 free throws to beat the Pistons to get their back-to-back. He wasn't an amazing free throw shooter. He was a very good free throw shooter. It wasn't amazing, but he made free throws. So no one ever talks about that, but there's not a whole lot of series championships won on made free throws in the last game. Cap did it.
Listen, Cap, again, growing up watching 80s basketball, I was a Lakers guy, and Kareem and Magic were my dudes. I was like, these guys are awesome. And so just as we look at my 3 teammates so far, there's something institutional knowledge about that 1 and that 5 knowing each other. And yes, Kareem is playing the 5, and I'm moving Wilt Chamberlain to the 4. Good luck scoring in the paint against that team.
We won't need to. Who does that anymore anyway?
Wait, Jarod, if Kareem's
Yes, Henry.
I'm worried though. If Kareem's 3rd, that means you're putting Steph 2nd. People are gonna freak out.
Henry.
Henry, this is an interesting yes. Is Jarod modern enough and comfortable enough in his own masculinity to pick LeBron first? Or does he have to go old school and get the respect of his buddies at the barbershop and go with MJ? I don't know. What do you think, Henry?
Go ahead, Henry.
Because that's the narrative. Only that narrative can work. No other narrative makes sense.
Look, Jarod can do whatever he wants. My personal suspicion is that he's gonna pick MJ 2nd and LeBron 1st.
I will say this before you put it up, Judy. We are literally splitting hairs right now.
Absolutely.
And I literally have gone back and forth on this because I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure who's gonna go where. But I'll tell you, well, we do know this. My next 2 people are clearly LeBron and Michael Jordan. So good luck scoring from the wing, by the way, when I got those 2 out there guarding you with the wing. You ain't scoring in the paint and you ain't scoring from the wing.
Depends what year we're talking about. But
so good luck. You might not score 70 points against this team. All right, Judy, put up number 2.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I was wrong.
I had a feeling it was MJ.
Oh.
And I'm sitting here going, shit, man. Like, okay. What do I even got to say, right? Like, by metrics like box score plus minus and PER, and this is shout out to John Hollinger, any average Michael Jordan and LeBron James prime season is better than any individual great season by Duncan, Kobe, Larry Bird, or Magic Johnson, right? Like that. Think about that, right? The average season of those guys is better than the best season of any one of those guys. That's how good these 2 dudes are right now at basketball. In terms of value over replacement player, which is something I'm always interested in and looking at, LeBron has spent 16 of his 17 seasons in the top 20. 11 of the 17 seasons, he's been 1st or 2nd. And he's number 1 all the time in terms of points you can look at value over replacement. We know all the numbers, 16-time All-NBA, 16-time All-Star. Oh, by the way, back to my Kareem point really quick. When he was making All-NBA, there were only 2 teams back then, not 3. Just a little FYI for those of you out there. 6-time All-Defense, 4-time champ, 4-time Finals MVP. He is number 2 all time in offensive box score plus minus. When it's all said and done, because I think that there's still more to write. Because to me, this isn't about Jordan has 6 and LeBron has 4. That's stupid. That's not it. Because LeBron, I think, will add more. And it's a thing maybe in my own brain that I can't get out of. When I watch them both, and I've seen them both at their apex and at their peak in games that matter, and it's decisive, whether it's a championship series or whatever, I'm almost always certain LeBron's going to win. Almost always. I was 1,000% Jordan was going to win. There was never a hint of doubt in my mind. Even if I've seen them lose before, won't happen. So again, that could be my own internal bias about that.
It is.
The hair that I'm splitting, but that's the hair that I'm splitting. It's with LeBron, I'm like 99.9% sure he's going to win. With Jordan, I'm 100% sure he's going to win. And that's it. It's that 1/100th of a belief that it might not work out. That is the point that I'm arguing, that I'm deciding. And as I said, these 3 guys can flip anytime in my mind, right? Like these are the 3 men to me who are the greatest players of all time, and nobody else. It's like when you're fancy and you go to clubs, right? There's like the inner room with the velvet rope, next level out, next level out, next level out. Those are the only 3 guys allowed in the innermost room of the greatest of all time pyramid. Only those 3. And there's a room outside, so other guys can hang out in there. What'd you say, Henry?
You see Caleb's question?
Am I wearing a Bulls? No, it's just a Nike one. It's just a Nike one. But fortuitous. So Judy, of course, you can put number 1 up. We know who that is. But yeah, that's the hair that I'm splitting. That 1/100th. And as I said, tomorrow I might decide, you know what, LeBron's there. Like it really. And I think ultimately over time, what's going to happen is, and it's kind of already there now, Kareem is just solidly 3. And it's going to really be on how I feel that day, jockeying between those 2. And then there's going to come a point where LeBron does something else, and I'm like, okay, no more jockeying. It's clearly he's 1 and Michael's 2. So that's it. That's my 5.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Are you
making?
You have no comments about how he's framing it?
I have comments about everything. My one thought though is like Michael Jordan's contributions to any game that he's in are very eye-catching, and I love it. Right. And like, and the sport exists. We have jobs because of that. Right. Like there's something about, being a child watching him play that sparks your imagination and is delightful. And it's worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. Like LeBron's more like, it's like the court's tilted a little, right? Like it's not as noticeable what he's doing. He's just a giant and a genius and, does a lot of weird, subtle things. And it's just harder to appreciate. I feel it too. I do.
But we have stats we have stats that suggest this, right? Like, so Jordan, he's number 2 in career VORP. Who's number 1 in career VORP? LeBron James.
Yeah.
Number 1 in win shares per 48. Jordan. Number 1 in offensive box score plus minus. Jordan. Number 1 in box score plus minus. Jordan. Number 1 in career PER. Jordan. Right. So it's this little thing. That's that little thing. I'm like, I'm gonna give him the slight edge because box score plus minus, offensive box score plus minus, PER. Those things to me tell me, okay, how do you impact the game every day? And Jordan impacts it in winning ways. I think to your point, Henry, you're right though. Like his things, the way he impacts it are much easier to like, oh, I see what he did there. With LeBron's thing, it's like, wait a minute, I have to watch that 75 times in a row on Synergy. And even then I might miss it. I have to call up Coach Thorpe to be like, Coach, what did I miss here?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So let me throw this out though. Everything you, of course, were saying, Jarod, is understandable and he deserves to get the credit he gets. But yesterday I'm watching tape of a team in Malaga, Spain. They play in the Euro Cup and they play in the ACB. And they have a really, really tall, slender-looking boy, pretty dark-skinned kid that I had not seen him play before. And I watched him block 4 shots in an ACB, against Valencia, a EuroLeague team. He only scored 2 points, but he blocked 4 shots, racing up and down the court, showing lateral quickness. I looked him up. One of the players on the team, I called him to make sure I'm right. He's fucking 16 years old. He's from the Congo. He's been in the Malaga program, which is a very, very well-respected program in Spain, for 2 years. He's going to be a top 5 pick, okay? Join the club. There's a million of them in the NBA now from every walk of life, and they're getting training earlier and earlier. And Jordan didn't see Tony Kukoc, a couple guys. Like the level of talent now is the reason why Jordan has every stat number 1 is because he didn't play. He played with a much stronger deck than Wilt did, but not compared to LeBron. And Curry's facing even more talent. Like that shift is going more and more. Michael shouldn't apologize at all. It's just for us looking backwards and recognizing that he just played with a modicum of talent compared to what these guys are facing now. And it's just going to grow because it's such a global game. And all these teams are recognizing, and I'm an American team because we don't do that great here. We get them to come to high school, right? I saw Joel Embiid as a 17-year-old playing for the Rock in Gainesville, right? Mm-hmm. I called Masai, I texted Masai while the game was happening. I'm like, who is this kid? And he said, oh, he's going to Kansas. I never heard of the kid. I don't follow it that way. Kansas knew about him. So this is happening more and more. And so that's one reason why MJ's stats are what they are. He would be every bit as impactful in this game for sure. But to say he'd always be first in everything is a leap. Right. I'm not prepared to say, right?
Right.
This is the argument. This is the hair you're talking about. Is LeBron at 30, almost 36 now, is facing an international level of talent that no one's ever faced before. And in 10 years, LeBron's database will be a little bit less impressive because there'll be so many more great players, and maybe we'll open up China, right? Maybe the Philippines is basketball crazy.
Yep.
We'll start getting some guards from there. Japan, Israel. There's a top 4 pick coming from Israel this year, who I think's fantastic because he can't shoot yet, but he's really a special talent. You couldn't have said that, 15 years ago. So that's part of it I look at all the time.
It'll
That's,
change. It'll change.
There's one other little, like, there's like a sports science part of this where, being a little crude, I would sometimes say that, like, MJ dunked over guys who smoked, right? Or didn't work out seriously. You can just tell from looking at them, right? Everybody in the NBA now is super fit compared to, so like, I remember reading articles when I was in middle school, and it was like, Michael, or maybe early in high school, Michael Jordan lifts weights, and people be puzzling over, like, would weights help in basketball, right? Like,
Yeah.
like that was like Steph Curry is ripped if you look,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
this is a different league now. And one little, like, I mean, they made fun of a little bit. Jordan got a little flack for being up all night in the casino the night before a playoff game, right? Like, forget the whole, like, team ethic and priorities, all this stuff, just from the lack of sleep perspective. Like, I don't think a lot of players can compete at the speed and
No.
force of today's game on zero sleep. Like
Likely
Jordan
not.
played in a league where he got to be wrecked and still faster than most people, right? Like, we can discount that. They also fouled the hell out of him all the time. Like, I get it. Like, it's this, you get this ridiculous thing. But
I'm not a big, the foul thing to me, these guys are so competitive. You can hammer them. They'll get up just like those guys did. I mean, and Jordan took a beating in a way LeBron never has, for sure. Physical beating.
Especially those Pistons.
Oh,
years.
man.
There's I've talked to Rick Mahorn about it. There's no question about that. But there's also no question. And Zach Lowe, I texted Zach about this. He did a great job of showing a screenshot of LeBron at the top of the key against Miami with 4 dudes in the paint and then the guy guarding him, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jordan never had to face that ever because of the rules.
Yeah.
Now, the game was a little bit more contracted for a couple of years because they lowered the 3-point line, they shortened it, and he shot better than 40% because of it. But it's way harder to score against 5 guys than just one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Kareem had the same thing. I think Devin or someone wrote on our chat, why aren't more people learning the skyhook? Well, the problem with the skyhook is it's a one-legged shot, right? And so if you're committed to the skyhook, and now there's help coming from, let's say you're doing, he liked the right block as you face the key. His favorite shot was on the right block, shooting it down the baseline. Well, there'd be a corner guy there, and the guy guarding the corner could make a play.
Drop down. Yep.
Not the easiest play to make because Kareem is way up there with his shot, right? But you could still get under his feet a little bit as you can make him feel cramped, right? And maybe also get a piece of it depending on your size. And then you have no option. You're already up in the air. You have to pass or shoot, and that's not a good pass to make when you're on one leg. Jordan had similar things to be able to deal with because of the illegal defensive rules, where you had to stay with your man above the break until the ball was broken, the plane was broken, or a guy had the ball, right? And that just was a lot of ground to cover. I told Henry, it looks like a crazy circus. Chasing after it because guys have to run so far to get there. But now you're already there, right? You're shading over, you're flooding ball side. So these are all things we always say Jordan in this league would be every bit as good as he was then. It would look different. I think it's fair to say.
He'd shoot more threes for sure.
Right. Oh, yes. And he would also get 10 assists a game maybe because no one can guard him one-on-one. And he was happy to pass the ball when the other guy was right in front of him, at least for a lot of the time. But LeBron then, I mean, he doesn't have to make these passes because the help not gonna be there in time. And you can you can go after Jordan at, what was he, 6'6", 205?
6'6".
205, what do you weigh?
Yeah, 210, maybe got bulked up, yeah.
LeBron was the best player in the league one year, weighing about 280. He's probably 245, and now it's just my educated guess. But you want to knock that sucker down, you're going to feel attacked too. You could do it against Jordan with no risk for yourself. But as I told Henry, when I was watching, we talked about this on the show, AD was screening Jimmy Butler one time in the game, and you could just see it where he hit him, and he's like it hurt. But that's what would happen with LeBron. He is a brick wall. Like a lot of these guys are because of their. I know. I've run away with my players even before COVID. I've told you guys. I fall apart like Mr. Potato Head. These guys are just pieces of iron. My son, I can't mess with my son, and he's nothing like these guys. So Jordan had it easier that way, and Jordan admitted this. He flat out said, if they allow zone, I couldn't do what I'm doing now. Yeah, we should not discredit Jordan's IQ for the game. It's one of my favorite things about him is the respect he gave Dean Smith for teaching him how to play. He wore those Carolina shorts under his jersey his whole career. He was from North Carolina, but I think he respected that way. He couldn't beat Dean Smith, unfortunately, probably for his teammates. Dean Smith's probably more magnanimous about things. But the fact that he learned how to play, I give him great credit. LeBron had to learn on the fly. He was not learning that from Paul Silas, the Cavaliers, because they don't practice in the NBA. They just play. The games are the practice. Imagine LeBron. I'm glad he didn't go to college. But if he had gone to college when he was 15, which would have been great, so he could still go to the NBA at 18 and learn the way he can learn, and he would have been even better those first 2 years, for sure.
Jarod, who else was tough to cut? Like we mentioned Durant, but who else was right on the fringe there for you?
I mean, Duncan was so hard to leave out. Like,
I agree.
Tim Duncan's number 2 all-time defensive win shares. Like what? Like what? Henry, we had a lot of crossover, Henry, in our list.
You made me feel bad about Kareem, to be honest. Like I just was like, when his accomplishments were sick. Like it's just ridiculous.
I mean, Kareem is. I mean, again, if you. To Davis went about aliens. Okay, think about looking at the game. If I put this man's resume down in front of an alien, they'd be like, who's better than that guy? And I'd be like, well, right.
No, that's Henry. Henry says Martians come down. Yeah, he's right. He's right. Kareem, I'll explain myself on Friday about
I bet you will. Yeah.
No, we know.
But guys, I rooted for Larry Bird against Magic in '79 NCAA tournament. Then Magic goes to LA, my favorite team, because of Jerry West, who does not deserve to be on the list. Good job, both of you. He can't. My rule number 1 is if you can't go with either hand, you can't make the list.
Can't make the
Jerry
list.
West was all right-handed too, just like Bob Cousy and Julius. But as a Laker fan, knowing that we had Kareem, anytime we needed at least a good shot, there's never been a better one-on-one play than Kareem Skyhook. Never. It's the best one-on-one. Jordan didn't have anything as good as that.
I mean, and Jordan's turnaround fadeaway in the mid post was good.
Amazing, yeah.
Excellent. I mean, he shot 50% with that, but that Skyhook,
yeah,
I need a bucket. That's good.
This is okay. So that's true. I totally buy that. I saw that. And I think about Rajiv, the founder of Second Spectrum, showing me, a lot of the learnings. Oh, I missed these. Excuse me. And he's like, basically, you should never run a play designed to result in a contested 2-point attempt. Like, just the way the opportunities are on every possession of an NBA game, you should never do that, which is we can debate that. A lot of good teams do, right? We just acknowledge like it's a long season. I think it's actually a way to like it's like a middle reliever. Like you're burning possession so you aren't like exhausting other players.
And you're not turning the ball over.
Has done a lot of it.
And you're not turning it over. Yeah.
And you're not turning it over.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But it is like, why does no one use the Skyhook now? I think you make an amazing point about it. But also, like, even best case, here's a guy who's 50-odd% to make 2 points. So that's expected value of 1, right? At the moment he's attempting that, somebody's got expected value 1.1, 1.2 on his same team right then. If you have 3-4 3-point shooters around. So, that's another reason, I think, right? So this is a little bit of like, yeah. That was right. That's right. Kareem had that weapon, but I don't know if it was as smart a call as we thought it was.
Yeah. And I think part of the thing too, Henry, is the balance between what the advanced stats and all the numbers tell us as we keep looking and we get smarter about this versus what we saw with our eyes and sometimes, yes, percentage wise, that's not good. But if that dude's taking it, it's probably a good shot, right? Like the idea of we know in math, right? Yeah. 3 is greater than 2. Of course, that's not very difficult to figure out. But there is something about, mid-ranges, we don't like that. But a Kevin Durant mid-range jump shot is as good as about any other shot you can have on the floor because he's 7 feet tall and because the likelihood of going in is like 58 or 60% or whatever the numbers tell us. And so, but those are outliers, right? The average NBA player, bad shot for you. Him, one of the great players of all time, good shot for him, right? So it's this weird
So I'm 10,000% in on this. Like I don't think anyone should ever make a coaching X and O decision based on how an average player would perform there, right? I've been brainwashed by watching the little Second Spectrum thing where the little icons move around the court, and you get a live reading of that player in that spot with that defense, what's their expected points per attempt, right? And like that exists and has for years. And that's where like all those post-up players are not the highest, like, when their number is going to be like 0.9, right? And out there, someone's 1.2, and I'm like, crap. Like, it's a real question, So I was seeing this like when Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol were both playing in the post in Memphis. And it's like, shit, it's not going to work, right? Like it's great. These are great players, but boy, if you move one of them out of the paint, it all just gets a lot better. Anyway,
that's why I thought.
David, let me ask you this: you get Kareem now, you're Pat Riley, and you get like Kareem on your team. What do you have him do now? Like,
if you on Miami currently,
sorry, if you're a mythical NBA team today, and you're the coach, you get Kareem. How do you have him play
in his prime? You mean?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm asking. Not 40, not 74-year-old Kareem. I mean, when he was one of the best players in the world. So,
sir, we're going to ask you to get out of the uniform.
So it's a couple of things. Number one, they would use a ton of pick and roll. He was super athletic and had amazing timing and amazing hands. So he'd be a very, very effective pick and roll player. You'd be crazy not to play at a very fast pace because Kareem could fly rim to rim. So imagine that. He was also a very gifted passer. I don't know that he was Nurkic, Adebayo,
but he was very good passer.
So you can run pinch post after him in the elbow. And then, and this is why I agree with you completely on the low post thing, and then in a pinch, at least we'll get a good possession for the skyhook and just make sure you do what we call naked side. You can't have a guy in the same corner.
Right.
That guy's going to fuck the shot up, right?
Right.
So make sure with the last 6 on the clock, let's make sure we clear that, cut through, leave it open, get the ball to him.
All the assistant coaches are up like, get out of there.
Yeah, for sure. Magic would be sending people over too. He directed everybody. So pick and roll, Kareem would be, just as good a pick and roll player as there ever was. Yeah.
Would you have him practice threes?
Oh, I was going to say this earlier, but we were talking about it for stuff. He was a good shooter. Like he was a good free throw shooter. Absolutely, I would
take him out the
without question. I would. And to be fair, he's like 7'3". He's so tall. If ever there was a man that could move his feet at that size, he'd have a chance to be able to guard people on the perimeter some. Right? Anthony Davis he's 3 inches shorter than Kareem, probably. Maybe 2, maybe 1, but definitely shorter. Kareem even see higher waisted, which means longer legs, higher center of gravity, harder to move your feet back and forth while changing direction. But Anthony Davis locking people up on the perimeter. Kareem at least could pass at it, but good luck switching against him. Because he also had all of the sealing things down like Shaq, right? He knew how to just seal you for layups and dunks. When you were asking Jarod about who we left off the list, because I've left him off too, Kevin McHale is not a top 5 player, but his ability to get angles to score in the post was incredible, right? These guys that knew how to just find ways where it wasn't shooting over the top, right? Like Kareem. Guys like McHale could shot fake and maneuver, and then the guy that I've considered top 5 for years is Olajuwon, because he leads the world in block shots. He was dynamic in the low post, could shoot the jumper, super athletic, so he can cover space, and he knew how to get those angles where he didn't just have to shoot the jumper. You had to respect his beautiful dream shake, and then he'd fake and step through quickly. Like McHale was more methodically. So he was a guy that I've often considered that number 5 spot, because I do think there should be a center in the top 5, not 2. Let's just be clear. I'll deal with that on Friday. I wouldn't have 2 of them.
Will's playing power forward. He's not playing center.
He's not playing
the 4. He's playing 4.
He could have. He could do whatever he wanted to do. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
But your point on Kareem shooting the 3, yes. In fact, he made some threes in his career. Wilt couldn't.
Yeah, you got to keep him low.
Yeah, I mean, unless he was shooting underhand, so your dog could block it. Right? Am I right? He shot free throw underhand, didn't he?
Your dog
my God. Okay, so usually people are like, "Wow, why didn't everybody shoot like that?" But David just gave like the most dismissive.
Because your dog would block it. There you go. We don't want to see that.
Yeah, you can't have a dog. You can't have any kind of shot where your dog can block it. All right.
Nope, that's not when you're that tall. Not when you're that tall.
What
No
are
way.
Thorpe's rules?
The other one, and Henry, here's another player because again, I really not because I think he's top 5, but just again looking at win shares for I think win shares for 48 is so interesting because total win shares like so much of that is about the team you're on, right? Like whereas for 48, okay, we're showing you something a little bit different. And defensive box score plus minus is Kevin Garnett. Like, oh my God, talk about like affecting the game, like and winning basketball. Garnett did so much, but spent those years languishing in that horrendous wasteland of Minnesota, right? Like where nothing ever went right. And by the time he got to Boston, not nearly as good as he once was, but still very good on defense and right help them win a
title. Henry,
I'm not gonna lie to you and
go ahead. No, go ahead, Henry. No, you go ahead.
I just fast on Garnett. Like I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that I watched a ton of Timberwolves games. I didn't. Like I paid for the league pass and they came into my house and I was like, the Timberwolves, come on, life is short, man. But I'll tell you this. I will tell you this. I've been to a lot of those MIT Sloan conferences, and I can tell you that I've been present when some of the smartest people in the world who have access to the most incredible data in the world make impassioned cases that Minnesota Garnett was like as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Like,
and on that same subject, there's 2 other guys, and one has a championship now. Anthony Davis is jetting up the charts.
Yeah.
He's already number 3 in career PER already.
Is he really? I knew he was jetting up the charts. That's higher than I thought. So Henry said to me on the phone early this morning that no one stat should really be the end all be all, right? And I love him. I think he's right. And so another guy like KG that isn't on our list, but if you just look at the data, it's easy to argue it in a blind study. If you didn't know about championships, that's Chris Paul.
Yes. Oh,
yeah. Chris Paul pops up in these lists, man.
Chris Paul is out. Listen, I've said it because championships coaching, you know this, and you know this too, Henry. It's so much a byproduct of some luck and what else you have going on around you in circumstance, right?
Management, coaching, roster, luck.
And for someone the size of Chris Paul, he is 6 foot on a good day with shoes. For him,
he's not.
Right.
Yeah.
For him to affect the game the way he does, you look at all his advanced numbers. Chris Paul is incredible. It's just that had shitty luck. Like he's had really shitty luck.
Well, and you got to really think about this. Like, you know, the vast majority of players won't get to play in the finals, won't get to play in the conference finals. Many don't get to play in the playoffs, and mostly don't get to play with anyone who shows up in any of these conversations, right? Think about the players who played with Chris Paul, you know, going back to like Tyson Chandler, James Harden. I feel like, man, you guys had a chance, right? Like, it might have come together, right? Blake Griffin, obviously, if you get to do that, you have to really think hard about, you know, doing anything else. And actually, this reminds me of pretty early in my job as an NBA writer. I ended up knocking into Steve Snapper Jones.
Snapper.
And I was interviewing people about the young Kevin Garnett. And I thought he was just a guy in the hallway of a stadium. And I was like, he was a commentator at that point. And I was like, look, you know, can I talk to you about Garnett? And he's like, yeah, but hold on, let's find a quiet spot. So we go into some unused hockey visitor locker room or whatever. And then he ends up kind of like, now that he knows no one can hear him, he just goes off about stuff about Marbury. And he's like, he said it 100 times. He was like, how in the hell do you leave Kevin Garnett? Like, and at that time I was like, I don't know, maybe he thought it was a jerk. Maybe he liked Kevin Garnett, right? But now I'm like, no, he's right. Like how in the hell do you leave any one of these players we're talking about, right? Like if you get to play with one of these players, do it. like do it. You might win championships.
We have a couple minutes left. This goes to something Henry said about LeBron as a GM. And I think it was in the piece we just published too the other day. He's not been a great GM. LeBron hasn't. He got AD. That was wise. Brilliant. That was super brilliant. Yeah. Right. That is the one guy that's the game changer. Damian Lillard's amazing. James Harden's amazing. Giannis is amazing. There is
Anthony
zero
Davis.
players in the world better partnering with LeBron than Anthony Davis, and they have a ring for it.
And it's what we see Davis can do on both ends of the floor. We talk about it all the time, and we don't know how to quantify defense properly and talk about it, but half the game is played on the other side of the floor, right? When you don't have the ball, another team does, you're on defense. And Anthony's ability to switch 1 through 5 is like, I mean,
I think there's something else too, Jarod. It's not easy to play with LeBron. It's not. It's not easy on the court. You think it is. It's not. You're not going to have the ball very much. It's not easy off the court if you have ambition, right? Whether it's social media clicks or whatever, attention. He just has all the oxygen, even when he doesn't want to, right? AD doesn't care. He is the genuine article for that description. A superstar that just doesn't care about that stuff beyond what I would say is normal. In other words, he wants to be respected and all of that, but he doesn't thrive that way. He doesn't need all that buzz. It'll come naturally. And this is what players have told me who have teamed with him, who are blown away when they get traded or signed with the Pelicans. And I may have said this before, I'm bringing it on. They show up to practice and there's AD saying, hey, here's my bat phone. Because all these guys have a couple phones. Anything you need ever, just call me. And if you got a wife, here's her number. Have her call me or my family. Like, he does this. Now, Kevin Durant did a pretty good job of that when people went there. Russell Westbrook does that really well, but not everybody does. And none of them, like Kevin Durant is close. AD is so good. And I think when I watched LeBron hug him and love him the way I did, part of it I thought was driven by, thank you so much for helping me win a championship. But the other part was, thank you for being you. Because this doesn't happen without you being a great player, but also just you being able to deal with all this shit and leaving when you were the man to come here to let me do this. Like, I just thought it was such genuineness from LeBron. And I think, and I'm going to write about this, Henry, pretty soon, maybe next week. Like, I think AD is shooting up the charts. We've not seen the last of him. He got hot in the bubble and started making threes. Like, what if he starts doing that?
And
what are people going to do?
Timing wise, this couldn't have worked out better for AD, right? He's catching LeBron on the downslope, right? So it's like, and AD's what, 27, something like that, whatever. Like, so he's gonna be fine. Like, when LeBron's 40, he'll only be 30. He'll be all right. I'm good to go now. So it's really.
And then he's gonna have Bronny Jr.
I think something else you brought up, Coach, was really interesting. Not every player can do it because a lot of them also have their own wants and opinions of themselves, right? Like, if I want to go down and like cement my legacy as like the greatest whatever, in the moment it might be hard to see how playing with someone else who's great, you're taking away shine from me. Like, I can't have that, right? And you can call it selfish, call it whatever you want, but like, these guys, a lot of them have thoughts about what their life is and what their place is going to be, and knowing if I'm going to do something, I have to move away and do it without these people because no one's going to.
Why are we talking about Durant again?
No, but I like. But even Durant, like
that's a good point for him, right? Because look, in a world where LeBron James does not exist, Kevin Durant's the best player in the world, right? Like, every year, hands down, right? And it's like, maybe except for those Steph Curry years. And now it's like, well, why aren't people giving me the due that I deserve? Like, I'm fucking really good. Like, yeah. You know, so I get it.
I think I know where to go. I think Kawhi went to the Clippers thinking, hey, I'm going to show that dude, right? I'm going to show that guy. And he got shown. Like, this is why we have LeBron where we have him. It takes more than just Paul George and a ton of really talented guys to beat that duo. And they just proved it. Maybe the pandemic, we'll never know, right? Next year will be different no matter what. There'll be different guys. But this year, in a very stressful situation, the Clippers melted. And the Lakers never lost 2 in a row. And they had no weak opponents. They had to beat a 4 seed because Portland was a 4 seed. Don't make that mistake. They were the 8 seed only because they have Nurkic and Collins. That's a 4 seed or even maybe a 3 seed if they play the whole year that way. They beat them and then the Rockets and then obviously Denver, a 3 seed, and then that Miami. The lowest seeded team probably was Miami, but the way they were playing, they obviously weren't a 5 seed. Yeah, that was well deserved, and AD is. I mean, he deserved it, but he maybe in 5 years we'll do this again and he'll be on our top 5. AD's got that kind of trajectory.
He's streaking up the board fast, Coach. Like, I'm looking at his advanced numbers and I'm like, what the?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
He's a joke.
Crazy.
All right, so today we learned about teams with Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and Friday we'll learn about a team that could easily beat them. So, tune in on Friday.
It's going to be a shootout. My team will be a shootout, but yeah, we're going
So wait,
in a seven-game
okay.
in a
Look forward to
seven-game
that.
series for sure. My team's going to win.
Coach,
100%.
your team is dump trucking Henry in a sweep, but my team, you're like, all right, it might take.
I don't know. Your 4 is in trouble with my 4. A lot of trouble with my 4. Let me just put it that way. A lot of trouble.
All right, this will be fun. All right,
Yeah.
see you guys.